Hello and welcome to another edition of Business and Financial Raw Talk. I am LaWanna Bradford and I love all things business, and I'm so excited because tonight we have a very special guest, Dr. Tamara, Tami, as I call her, Patzer, and we are going to be talking about how to monetize your book. We know that everyone is rushing to write a book. You have a story to tell. You want to inform, you want to elevate, you want to help people to gain more impact in their lives. And it's so important to get that bestseller status. But what happens after the bestseller? How can you continue to monetize? How can you be that best viable option when it comes to you as a knowledge broker? So we're going to unpackage some of this with Dr. Patzer and get her insight, especially in today's market. So in just a moment, we will be back. Hey, Tami, how's it going?
Great. Thanks for inviting me. I'm really excited.
So am I. I want the audience to really understand the wealth of knowledge that you bring to this stage. And I don't want to botch it up. I want your video to speak for itself because you've done some amazing things, whether it's with mass media, in higher education, working with small business owners, big businesses. You're an author yourself. So let's see what your video has to say about you. I love that reel because it really, I think, encapsulates when I tell people you want to find a coach or mentor or a consultant who's been there, done that, and got the t-shirt, who has the credits to prove that they are who they are, and you are the GOAT.
Well, thank you, LaWanna. That's quite the honor. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you for coming and taking time out of your busy schedule. Today we're going to talk about how to monetize your book. And I'd like to just immediately turn it over to you. Why do you think, let me back up, people aren't monetizing it beyond the book sales? What's going on there?
I think people get the idea that the book is the end game. I think they, in their mind, they build it up to be like, I'm leaving this legacy. But the reality is the book is the foundation. It's the beginning of something that could be great, far greater than your imagination, because yes, it'll help you have impact. It'll help you have a lot of influence. It'll leave the legacy. But most people are leaving, let's say, cash on the table, the income part, because you can literally create a business from your book. That's what I did.
I've never heard it spun that way. So let's unpackage that a little more. You said you can create a business from your book. So this is a totally different income stream beyond the sales.
Beyond the
So
sales.
how did you do that? Did someone guide you in how to do it, or did you just have this aha moment?
Uh, the only guide, let's just put it this way. My guidance started when I was a little girl. My mother was a writer, and I used to pretend to interview her because she instilled in me that her novel, she wrote novels, that it was going to change our lives. Okay, she ended up passing away before her work was ever published, but that seed was planted, and I was always interested in writing, advertising, marketing, creative outlets. But even with that, I realized that you can be very creative, but there was always that starving artist that was very popular back in the day, that if you were creative, it meant you didn't ever make money. And in my mind, I'm going, well, that can't be. And I actually, when I got my bachelor's degree, I went to Eckerd College, and I did creative writing and business management. So for me, it's always been, how can I be creative, but also make a living, or better than a living? And when I first started, I was a journalist. I was a newspaper editor. And of course, a newspaper editor is not on the money side of the newspaper business. We're on the tell the story side, the writer side. But I always had ideas about how do I take my ideas and make money with it. And so I would cooperate with the advertising people, and we would create products like the schools of Northport. I did one in Boca Grande about the chefs, so we sold the ads to all the restaurants, and then we had recipes and chef interviews. So I've always been very creative that way. So I'd say my mom was an inspiration, but me trying to keep up with the world, the internet, I knew that if I didn't learn how to use the internet, I'd be left behind, because I saw the newspapers were having issues then. I knew that when I went back to college in my mid 30s, that I needed to make sure that whatever I was learning was going to help me to keep going, because by the time I was starting to earn money, I was already in my 40s, late 40s. So I knew that the odds of me ever retiring at age 62 or 65, probably that wasn't going to happen. And I'm now, I'll admit it, 66. And I'm still looking forward to all the wonderful things that I'm doing, because I'm expanding with my knowledge and brain. So the reason why I said a book, I actually wrote a book called Ask Tami, 365 Social Media Tips, Tricks, and Tools. That book, I probably sold 50 copies. But I built this entire Blue Ocean Authority, Women Innovators Publishing, the Daily Success Institute, the brand Tamara Patzer, Tami Patzer, all on that book, which was really 365 tips, tricks, and tools that somebody could use to understand how to use social media, how to use video, how to use the tools that were very popular back in 2012. And here we are in 2025. So I built this foundation. I use the book as the foundation to keep growing and expanding. And that's how I see it, is the book is just the beginning.
So let me ask you this question, and you're blessed with having that creative side and the business side and the strategy side. Like I said, you are the GOAT. You've got all of this genius going on. But someone may just have a book. They had a great idea, a great story. What is the first thing that they should do if they're looking to begin to build it as a business?
So it depends on what's the story. I suggest that you can talk to someone, like you talk to people, you help people to see who they are. I talk to people to see who they are. If you can't see your own gifts and talents and who you are to the world, you need to go ask somebody. And most of the time other people will say, oh my goodness, you are so great at XYZ. So some people, maybe they've lived through diversity of some type. Maybe they're really good at seeing how to come out of the other side. Maybe there's somebody they can create a product. Maybe this book of theirs is just a reflection, and there might be one little kernel of something that they could build on. And sometimes you just need somebody else to say, hey, yeah, let's take a look at what you have. Or it could be as simple as the book provides this outline of what other people are seeking. If people are actually reading your book, or they might make a comment about one specific thing that maybe you highlighted, maybe that could be what you're building your business on. I've done recent PR for you, for example, leadership and your R3 system and the different things. Other people need what we have, and sometimes we're not capable of seeing it. So I would say talk to somebody who can help you see who you are. That would be a good first step. And sometimes you just need to stop and look at, what have I already created? What am I good at? Who am I? Maybe you're really a good mom. It could be, it could really be a lot of different things. Caregiving is another. I know a lot of people who have been put into a position of caregiving, either parents or grandchildren. Me personally, I help take care of my grandchildren. I actually have a book outline about grandparenting. And again, I'm not an expert, but I have personal experience that I could probably share, and other people could benefit from it. So what could that become? It could be a book, it could be a service, a coaching program, an online course. Just kind of open your mind to the possibilities and look at what other people are doing that maybe you could do too.
Yeah, I like that. And like you were using the caregiving example, I was there for dad, and until you go through something, you hear people being, they're caregivers, but you don't really know what that experience really is. And until you go through it. And I've learned so much about it, and so much about the different, from Medicare, from VA, just understanding that lane beyond, being the advocate for the parent. And so, yeah, I think there are so many opportunities. I think that if individuals who wrote the book looked into their lived experience, right? Because typically that book is drawing from something for the most part. And then seeing, as you said, what can you do? Perhaps you could take out a chapter and have it as an online course. There are so many opportunities, but you have to, I guess, as you said, first understand where your strengths and skills lie, and don't be afraid to ask. Because sometimes I think we play small. What do you think? Do you think people tend to play a little smaller than they need to?
Yes, I've actually had this conversation with myself about who do I want to work with, for example. And so, I work a lot with women, and a lot of times when you work with women, especially women who maybe maybe they had a great divorce, or maybe they got kicked out of the workforce, or something happened, and they'll say, oh, well, I really don't have any money. And so, I'm always like very cognizant of that. But then some of my best clients are people who they're not worried about the money aspect, that they just say, I want to be a thought leader, help me become this person. And those people I love to work with, just because they give me this free reign of having all my creative ideas, and I'm not hemmed in by worrying about, are they going to be able to afford it? But yes, we sometimes we hold ourselves back. I know I've held myself back. And the truth is I can help small business owners. I can help CEOs and bigger business owners. And I always look at, well, what can I provide that is the highest quality available, so that I can elevate my status. And I think if I look back over the years, for example, it took me from 2009 until 2016 to start even generating real income, because I was holding myself back. I had some fears of, a lot of people have the fear of, who's going to listen to me? But then when I actually look at who, all of my education, all of my real life experience, you start to go, well, yeah, people should listen to you, because you have the foundations of a solid education in mass communications. I taught for 10 years. And then, yes, I've written books, I've done podcasting, I've done television, I've done newspapers and magazines. So when you start to look at yourself and pull in all of the things, you find out, wow, you really do have a background, and you should be sharing it and monetizing it. And you can use that book to help with that credibility and that authority. That's what books really do, author authority. They really do help you to elevate your status.
Yeah, I like that. And often we do have to have that wall of remembrance of all that we've done. Because it's easy to forget. We're living in the moment, and someone has to say, hey, remember when? Oh, yeah. Our memory tends to be a little bit shorter than we realize. And I think and I want to speak specifically to women, I think men do this far better than we do. Men celebrate their accomplishments. Women, not so much. We don't want you to know all the great things that we've done. And I remember reading, it was in an article, and the article stated, it was talking about self-confidence. And they was speaking specifically to small business owners. And it said, if you're unable to stand and celebrate yourself, why would you expect the world to stand and applaud you? And that literally instantly did a paradigm shift for me. I thought, it's okay to say, I've done this. I've done these things. And when you are able to speak up, other doors can open up, other doors of opportunity, because you never know who may want to partner with you, right? As an author, as an expert in a particular area, someone may be looking for that to supplement their business, right? Because I know I don't want to do everything. Like my partnership with you, I'm not trying to do what you do, but I will will pass people to you because it just makes sense.
Yes. And it's also, I think it's interesting because people like I find out new things about you all the time, and I've actually been rewriting my questions that I have people answer, so that when I do press for them, that I can do as deep a dive as possible on them. And just recently, I did some articles for you, and I found out all kinds of things about you that I didn't know by listening to some interviews you did. I guess it was with the podcast for when you were at the Super Bowl or something.
Oh, yes.
But it was, I was going, wow, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. And there's, all of us have these layers. And for example, one thing that I should promote more is I was on a Pulitzer Prize winning journalism team for the coverage of Hurricane Charlie. We didn't win the first level, but we were like the third level. So we were, third place in a Pulitzer Prize nominated team for that coverage. And that's actually a pretty big deal when
It's a very
you
big
think
deal.
about it. And sometimes I look at some of the awards, that I won when I was in journalism, but you go, wow, that was so long ago. But the truth is, everything that you've ever done is fair game in supporting who you are today. And I think that, and you said it, a lot of times women, especially, some men, but women were, it's the humble brag that we have trouble with. I want to make sure, because this is something I struggled with. And I think that many people struggle with this. When I was trying to come up with my signature talk or my signature topic, I had coaches they were always like trying to tell me to come up with like the worst thing that ever happened to me and to build on that, right? And the truth is, you don't have to go to the worst thing that ever happened to you and build on that. You can go to things that helped you to realize something. For example, I like everyone, I had things happen to me, got a divorce young, all that stuff. It was all traumatic, but that isn't the me that I want to project out to the world. The me that I like to project out to the world is the 15-year-old who needed money to go to Disneyland, and her mom told her to figure it out. I needed $125. This is back in the 70s to go on a class trip to Disneyland. I lived in Oregon, and so it was a California trip. And I needed $125, and my mom said, work for it. And I'm like, I wasn't quite old enough to get a job. I was 15, but I got mad and I went outside in Oregon. It must have been spring, and it was kind of misty, rainy. And I'm outside with a flashlight, stomping around the backyard. And all of a sudden I see this movement, and it was night crawlers laying on top of the dandelion weeds and the grass. And it was like, oh my goodness, and I run in, and I told my mom about all these night crawlers laying on the ground. And together we came up with the idea of picking night crawlers and selling them to fishermen. And a business was born. And I sold night crawlers to fishermen, 3 dozen for $1. And I took a piece of plywood and I called it Mr. Wiggles and put night crawlers, 3 dozen for $1. And lo and behold, the doorbell started ringing at 5 o'clock in the morning with the fishermen coming to buy my worms. And I ended up selling enough worms, and I even wholesaled them to the local gas station who put them in a vending machine. I mean, this is innovative stuff back then. And that was an example of how you can create something out of a need, right? I needed money.
Right.
And it was like, figure something out. And then it presented itself. And of course, I
Right.
could have went out there and saw those worms and said, oh yeah, whatever. But instead it turned into an enterprise. And I think I had that business maybe for a year or so, before we had a drought and it cost too
But
much.
but what you said, you were willing to tap into that creative space. I mean, so many of us, we may live in a box and that's it. We don't practice expanding our minds, expanding our higher faculties, and really tapping into that creative genius. And I remember years ago, and I think I shared this with you, an individual by the name of Jim McCracken. He was a multimillionaire, and I asked him, I said, if you were going to give me one piece of advice, what would you give me? I thought he was going to tell me about stocks or savings or, something financial. And he said, well, real easy. He said, just know there's never a lack of money. There's only a lack of knowledge and resources. So never pray for money, pray for knowledge, pray for resources. And that's always been where I am. I don't see lack. It's like, okay, I'm just not in that area where I'm attracting it. What's going on? How do I shift my thinking? What am I not seeing? And like you said, you're walking around, whole night crawlers. Oh, wait a minute. There's fishermen. There's a need. And even with this book idea, I think individuals can look at it by dissecting it. Like, first of all, you have your primary audience, but who's that secondary, tertiary audience that may benefit from it, right? Like you said, your book with the tips on social media. So many people, I mean, from just the average person to a small business owner to corporations, even teaching how to write this little simple how-to book. So,
Yep.
Yeah, I think this is great. The other thing that I'd like to ask you about and speak to our audience is, because you are an expert, and I'm finding, and it's really sort of a pain point for me, so many individuals I think they're expending a lot of time and money in the wrong lane. So it's like, I'm going to Google University, and I think if I read a few articles in Google University, I'm going to come out with all of the knowledge and experience that Tami has. And that's not the case, but I'm finding so many people are trying to shortcut the learning instead of investing their time and their money with the right person who can get them there that much faster. What would you like to say to that?
You're absolutely right. Again, remember how I said it took me from 2009 to 2016, and what slowed me up, it wasn't that I wasn't trying to find that right person. It was that I was limited in different resources and everything. But for example, there's a lot of people who that they go, well, I can write my own press release. I can use those free services and I can do all this. Well, yeah, we all can get a template and fill it out and then find a free service and send it out, and you'll probably get some success. But is that really where you want to spend your time in trying to figure all this out when you literally could answer 10 questions, give it to me, and I go, boop, 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 and I do my thing, AP style, Associated Press style, and send it out to different levels of distribution. And 24 to 72 hours, here's your report on all the pickups and all of that. How I see it is like, what was that, 7 years that I wasted, when I could have went like boom. Now I understand that if you find the right person, they literally can cut 7 to 10 years off of that learning curve. Like, I went to college and I did the 4-year bachelor's program. I did the master's degree. I worked on the PhD. I mean, and the truth is some of that you don't need, because like the PhD, a lot of that is like, oh my God, talk about boring stuff. And from my real life experience in social media, mass communications, and everything, I knew more than those professors who'd been teaching academically all of those years. I mean, I'm like going, what are you guys talking about? I apply this every day. I apply the knowledge I learned in the back end of Facebook and everything. So the point is, I agree with you. If you want to cut the learning curve, go find the person who knows how to do it and pay them to do the stuff that you really don't want to spend your time learning how to do. Because yes, you can take a lot of courses. A lot of people, they have the shiny objects syndrome, or even me. It's this knowledge, you want it right now. AI is huge, and I actually wrote a book about how to talk to AI back. It was like February of 23, and we got access to AI, I think, in November of 22. And that book I call it Proven Prompts, because if you don't know how to talk to ChatGPT or the AI, you're not going to get anything that is really good. You'll get something that's better than what you probably could have done yourself. But if you don't know, like a press release, for example, yeah, AI can write a press release, but how do you know if it meets the requirements of what a media outlet is looking for, which is Associated Press style, etc. So you're better off to just work with somebody who's, been there, done that, knows how to do it, and can give you what you want. And also, like people like me, I look at it from a different perspective, and I say, oh, now you've got this press release. Oh, you've got this podcast. Oh, you've been on TV. How are we going to use it? Just like the book. Everything you do, the book can be monetized, your podcast can be monetized, your press release, even the press releases and articles can be re-leveraged over and over again. Most people, they're like a one and done. It's like a press release, one article. And I keep trying to explain to people, no, this is consistency. You want to have stuff going out regularly, even if it's like once a month, one little thing. And why it goes into the search engines, and pretty soon it's pushing your website up with the SEO and the do follow links, and it's helping people to know that you're real, that you're legitimate. If you only have, let's say you did a press release back in 2020 and this is 2025, they go, how is she still out there? There isn't anything new.
That's important. I know when I was at the Super Bowl last year, Super Bowl 58, and I was interviewing with one of the media outlets, and he was asking how people could reach me, and I said, well, I'm easy to find. I'm Googleable. He goes, yeah, actually you are. Before you came for this session, he said, I looked you up. And he's like, she has vetted everyone. And it just made me think, wow, people are you're going to have to show and prove in this day and age. And it's easy to find those who are pretending to be someone they're not. And one of the things that I want to say, like in working with you, I can't believe we're going on 6 years. Can you believe that?
Oh, really? Who knew?
But in that, budding relationship, and I didn't know what to do. I just knew I wanted to have that exposure. So not only did you provide a service, but you provided coaching, and guidance in what I needed to do. But in that, and I'm just sharing this with the audience, in those different hits that I was getting, whether it's a press release or an article, other people were seeing it. And then I was asked to be in other things, or asked to be on someone's stage to speak. So it opened up doors because people saw it. And even with my system, as you mentioned, the R3, I remember talking to you. It's like, okay, I've got this concept. How do I get it out there? You said, you just got to get it out there. Because I literally was scared. And the first thing I did, it wasn't the R3, but it was really coming from behind, because the brand from behind the brand was with the Times Square billboard.
Oh,
that literally kicked off, because if you go back in time over the last 2.5 years, you'll see that's when the momentum started and the consistency started, and my messaging started to change. But sometimes you have to have someone give you a little kick, right? Those that can see outside the frame. And it was scary, but I'm like, okay, now how can I use this? And then I, did my little voiceover about it. And it's like, okay, now how can I use it some more? And even what you just put out with the CEO Weekly, I was reading it again this morning. I thought, wait a minute, the way this is sectioned, I can take each of these sections and have it as a separate piece, a separate post. I was thinking I could make one part of it. I could make a video just with, take it and do a voiceover, and because I do video, I love videos, and do that part of it. But I don't think I would have looked at things that way if I hadn't been walking with someone who does that all the time. So I want to publicly say thank you to you, because you've given me the confidence and the understanding of how to do this, but I'm still nowhere near the expert. I still need guidance, and that's okay. I know what I'm good at. I'm the strategy performance person, but as far as helping to get that exposure, I don't mind saying, guide me and help me to get there. And I think that's one of the things that you do very well. And I'd like to, but we're going to take a quick break. But when we want to come back, I want to talk about the Blue Ocean Authority and how you help individuals get published in the collaborative books.
Okay.
And we'll be right back.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so let's talk about the publishing side of you. Like I said, you've got all these amazing lanes that if anyone works with you, they don't have to start with the whole package, right?
No, it's interesting because back in 2016, I was doing podcasting, and I don't even know how many I'd done, maybe 200 at that point in time. And I was at this, let's say, the crossroads, and I got mad at God, and I said, God, give me some idea, because I don't want to go get a job. And I'm pretty sure I had a few swear words in there, and there was a lot of intensity and a lot of emotion. A couple days after that, I woke up Saturday morning and I had an idea. I was going to write a book, a collaborative book based on my podcast interviews, and I was going to call it Women Innovators, Leaders, Makers, and Givers, Women Who Make a Difference. So I put it out in a Facebook post, and said, if you're interested, DM me. That was Saturday morning. By Sunday afternoon, I had 64 women who said, I want to do that. And that changed everything. All of a sudden, I had to figure out, well, how am I going to do this book project? And I knew I did not want to try to cram 64 stories into one book. So that actually turned into 8 Women Innovators books and 2 different versions, a big message, big mission book and a feminine journey to success book, all based on the concept of turning a podcast into a book, that are still in production.
Here's what occurs.
Did one, and LaWanna did that one. And what those are, expert profiles is exactly that. It's I do a podcast interview with you, and then we turn it into a book chapter. And then there's another one, Raising the Bar is another one about how to, provide really good service to your clients and customers. And then the Women Innovators, I haven't done one for a long time, just because I've been doing other things. But collaborative books are a really good way to get your feet wet and get into it, because the expert profiles are done in an interview style. So you just answer questions and you get the PR from the podcast. The books are put together, and then we run a bestseller campaign. So you get to become a best-selling author. And then I do a lot of additional marketing. So collaborative books are a really good way to get started. And then I even have some other book projects that I work on now. Like one is called Ask the Expert, and that's literally a solo book, but it's just you answering questions based on whatever the topic is that you are the expert in. And those are all fun. But I think what makes
let me ask you, so that particular book, Ask the Expert, so it's sort of like your Ask Tami series?
Probably similar to that, because it would be like normally 15 to 20 questions, and the book comes out, it's a cute little book. It's like a 4x6 little book, and it's something that somebody could read to all the questions that they frequently ask questions. And then I always do the should ask questions, the questions that people should ask, but they don't know enough to ask. I always put those types of questions in so that they get a really good sampling of, number one, who you are and what your expertise is. So if they read an Ask the Expert book, they literally have most of those questions answered. And what that does for you is it streamlines the process of going from, well, who are you, to, yes, I want to do business with you, because they've had all those questions answered.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah,
and
cuts through a lot of the other steps, the dance, right? Going back and forth dance. Yeah.
And I think what I started to say, what I think makes everything I do totally different than what other people do is that obviously it's me, but I take a personal interest in this, and I help you to understand, like, how do you use it. For example, when you talked about Times Square, that is iconic. When your face is on a billboard in Times Square, and again, you have to use it. Everything that I do, it isn't something that is just magic. And like, you've got a book. Oh, you've got this billboard on Times Square. You have this article in CEO Weekly or New York Weekly. if you actually stop and go, well, how am I going to use this? How can I leverage this? Just like all of the podcasts and the TV shows that you produce, if your guests just come on and talk and then they never ever share it or do anything with it, they're missing out on what I call the evergreen marketing, because normally when you're sharing your expertise, 99% of the time it's evergreen information, and it's also foundational information that people can get to know you. I've had people who've actually called me and they'll tell me, they go, yes, I went and I tried to find every interview that you've ever done. I watched your videos. So they really dug deep to see if I was the one. And I think that's important, that people think about all of the interviews they've done, the podcasts, maybe they've done local, maybe they've been on TV, maybe they have a Times Square billboard, and they're excited at that moment in time.
Right.
But then that you lose that excitement again because of our busy lives. But go back and do that inventory of what you have, and you're going to find out that you have a lot of really good evergreen marketing materials that you can keep using and building on. It's like building that, kind of reminds me of, when they make the croissants where they layer the butter and then they fold it and they layer the butter, and then pretty soon you've got this layers and layers, and it's all fluffy and yummy and nice. That's kind of like your digital assets. It's just layer after layer after layer. And if you go back, you can use it to build this really good foundation for whatever you want. But
we're almost out of time. We're going to take a quick break. I'll come back and give you 1 minute, and then we will have to close out and have you back on.
Well, this is so much fun.
Okay, 1 moment. All right, Tami, I'm going to give you a minute to talk to the audience, and then we'll definitely have to have you back for part 2.
Oh, okay. So thank you, LaWanna, first of all. This has really been fun. I guess what I would like to say is, no matter where you're at, let's say that you have published a book and you're at that point where you're at that what's next? What is beyond the bestseller? Reach out to me and we can talk about what you would like to do. Maybe you're somebody who you don't really have a book yet, but maybe you have a book inside that you'd like to explore. We can always talk about that. I think the big point that I'd like to make for today is, if you're somebody who needs a little bit of insight into what is happening now, that is one of the things I do, keep up on all of the latest technology and how to use it and how to apply it. We could have that conversation about, how do you look at whoever you are? How are you going to use it for now and into the future? And what stories to tell? What is your message? What is your brand? It does not have to be an expensive proposition. There's so many things that you can do using what you've already done and leveraging everything that you've done. You just need a roadmap, and I'd be happy to talk to you about that. So my text or phone is 421-6563. That is directly to me. My personal email is tamarapatzer@gmail.com, Patzer. And those are the two ways that you get to talk to me personally. And I would be happy to make an appointment and we can just kind of talk and figure out where you are and if I'm the person who can help you. So again, LaWanna, I really appreciate you inviting me to the show. It's always a great time to talk to you.
Thank you. This is great. I appreciate it. And to those who are listening, leaning in, think about this. If you're an author, thinking about being an author, how can you make a business from your book? So again, thank you so much, Tami, Dr. Patzer, for joining us for another edition of Business and Financial Raw Talk. I am LaWanna Bradford. And just remember that in life and in business, when your vision intersects with opportunity, success is inevitable. We'll see you next week for another edition of Raw Talk.
Business and Financial Raw Talk, a no-holds-barred forum for leaders and innovators with award-winning business strategist and financial analyst LaWanna Bradford with the Bradford Group. With Raw Talk, we are empowering women to rise and succeed in business and finances and improve the world for the next generation. Get ready to get raw and real. Live each Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern on e360tv.com.